Under a sky the color of rust and fading embers, the land stretched outward like a hymn no one dared to finish. Elias Boone sat on the porch of his ranch, a splintered place of weathered boards and tired silence, his hands roughened by years of work that had never softened into companionship. The prairie wind carried dust that clung to his boots, the same way loneliness clung to his ribs, and for the longest time that had been enough. Or so he told himself. But nights, when the coyotes called and the fire burned low, he would wonder what it might be like to share that fire with someone who saw him not as the forgotten man on the edge of town, but simply as Elias. That evening the wind brought him something more than dust. It carried the faintest cry, half swallowed by distance, sharp enough to freeze his breath mid-draw. He rose, listening, unsure if it was animal or human, real or imagined. Curiosity bent his steps toward the brush. His lantern swung, casting narrow circles of gold against endless shadow. There, beneath a mesquite's twisted arms, he found her. The girl lay crumpled, skin fevered with dirt and sweat, a gash across her arm, her braids loose like the earth had tried to untangle her. She was young, not more than 22 by his guess, her features carrying the proud lines of the Comanche. Elias's first thought was danger, retaliation, reprisal, blood feuds. The second thought was stranger still, she looked breakable. He knelt, hand hovering above her shoulder, torn between leaving her to fate or drawing fate straight into his home. He whispered a curse at himself, but his arms lifted her anyway. She was lighter than he imagined, though the weight of what he carried settled into him like an iron brand. His horse shifted uneasily as he laid her across the saddle, the prairie watching with its eternal stillness. Every step back to his cabin felt louder than a gunshot. Inside, he placed her by the fire, wrapped her in a wool blanket that still smelled faintly of cedar smoke. He cleaned her wound with trembling care, his hands unpracticed at such tenderness, yet unwilling to let her bleed. She stirred once, eyes flickering open, dark as storm clouds about to break. Her gaze was sharp, mistrust sparking there, and Elias braced himself for words in a tongue he could not follow. But she said nothing. Her silence held, and he broke it by offering bread in his palm. She hesitated, then took it with cautious dignity, as though deciding whether mercy could be trusted. Elias turned his face toward the fire, unsure whether to be relieved or afraid. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind against the shutters reminded him of the risk he had brought under his roof. If her people came and found her here, what would they see? A rescuer or a thief of daughters? He thought of the way townsfolk already spat whispers behind his back, calling him cursed, calling him strange. How much worse would they speak now? He chewed on these thoughts until sleep claimed him in the chair, the girl's faint breathing the only sound in the room. Morning light spilled across the plains, and with it came the sound of hooves. Elias woke to the sight of figures cresting the ridge, silhouettes riding with purpose. His chest tightened, his heart a frantic drum. The girl, now sitting upright though pale, watched through the window without fear. She said a single word, soft, reverent, before the riders dismounted. The man who entered carried presence like thunder. He was broad-shouldered, his hair streaked with gray, his face carved with years of command. His eyes found Elias first, and the room seemed to shrink. Then he turned to the girl, who rose on unsteady legs. She called him father. Elias expected fury, the kind that comes with fire and gunpowder. He expected death. Instead, the man studied him in silence, gaze weighing and measuring. Then, with a voice like gravel smoothed by river water, he thanked Elias for saving his daughter's life. Gratitude came with strangeness, though, for after his thanks he made an offer that hollowed the air. He would give his daughter, Nayeli, as Elias's wife. The word struck like a stone in still water. Elias reeled, his mouth dry. Marriage was not the reward he had ever imagined, nor the kind he thought himself worthy of. He looked to Nayeli, her face unreadable, her eyes steady. She did not shrink. She did not protest. Something in her stillness spoke more than any vow could. She was not being given away, she was choosing to. Elias's heart, worn thin from years of solitude, trembled at the thought. Fear and want collided within him. He thought of the townspeople, their judgment like knives. He thought of the nights he had spent staring at firelight, hollow and unseen. Here was a chance to end that silence, but at a cost that would scar him deeper in the eyes of others. And yet, when Nayeli's gaze met his, soft but unwavering, his answer rose before he could crush it. Yes. Their union came quietly, without fanfare, beneath the same sky that had watched his loneliness for so long. They stood together on the open land, the wind carrying their vows unspoken but true. Elias felt the earth shift beneath him, not with thunder, but with the steady certainty of roots settling into soil. The ranch changed in ways words could not keep up with. Where silence once echoed, there was now the rhythm of two lives weaving together. Nayeli's presence transformed the cabin. Wildflowers arranged in tin cans, the smell of herbs steeping on the stove, the sound of Comanche songs hummed in low tones at dusk. Elias watched her shape the emptiness into belonging, each gesture small but profound. He found himself speaking more than before, his voice no longer foreign in his own house. He learned her words slowly, stumbling but trying, and she learned his in kind. But the world beyond their fence was less forgiving. Neighbors turned cold shoulders, muttered insults that reached Elias's ears in town. Savage lover. Betrayer. The weight of their contempt pressed heavy. Shame curled like smoke in his chest, and at night he wondered if he had doomed her to scorn by accepting her. Sometimes he caught Nayeli's eyes watching him, not accusing but patient, as though waiting for him to understand that love was not built from other people's approval. One evening, when despair clawed hardest, she laid a single wildflower on the table between them. A simple thing, fragile and fragrant, but it said everything. Beauty persists even when the world spits against it. Elias touched the flower, and something within him shifted. Small acts of grace, he realized, could bear more strength than anger ever could. Love grew between them not in grand confessions, but in glances that lingered, in hands brushing as they passed tools, in laughter shared when the horse splashed water over them both. It was a slow burn, steady and unshakable, a language deeper than words. Elias, once defined by solitude, found himself reshaped by her nearness. He carried himself taller, not with pride but with dignity. Then came the test. Riders again, but not her people, his neighbors. They came spitting insults, demanding he rid himself of the savage. Their laughter was sharp, their threats sharper. Elias's blood turned to fire, hand twitching toward the rifle by the door. But Nayeli stepped forward first, her presence calm as still water. She said nothing, only took Elias's hand in hers. The gesture was small, quiet, but it struck harder than any bullet. Their unity stood like a wall against cruelty. The men faltered, unsettled by strength they could not wound, and rode off into the dusk. In the silence that followed, Elias's breath came ragged, but his heart swelled. For the first time he did not feel the sting of their scorn. He felt something greater, belonging, dignity, love unbent by the world. That night, by the fire, Nayeli sang a song soft and low, a melody shaped by her people, carrying sorrow and hope alike. Elias listened, eyes closed, letting it wash through the cracks of him. He thought of the years he had wasted believing himself cursed, when in truth he had only been waiting, for her, for this. And as the stars rose, Elias understood. Loneliness was not a punishment but a path. A path that had led him to this woman, to this life reborn. He turned to the fire, and then to you, dear listener, as though to confess a secret earned by scars. If you carry loneliness like a stone in your chest, do not despair. Sometimes salvation does not thunder in, it arrives quietly like a stranger at your door, and all that is asked of you is the courage to let them in.